Hello and welcome to episode 319 of the Clean Energy Show. I'm Brian Stockton.
I'm James Whittingham.
This week, Great Britain has approved its first hydropower projects in 40 years. One of the projects is in the famous Loch Ness, where officials have reached a truce with Nessie, who will take 20% of the profits.
Fair.
And also, Greece is now offering a bounty for a pufferfish that has invaded their waters. The ocean has been warming, leading to the pufferfish traveling farther and farther from its natural home. Basically like Canadians going to Florida for the winter. No word yet if the governor of Florida will issue a similar bounty for invasive Canadians.
Oh, that and more in this summer edition of the Clean Energy Show. And also this week's show, the return of the lightning round, because
Nice.
I'm getting ever so slightly stronger from my surgery. I'd like to apologize to everyone, but I'd also like to thank everyone for all the comments we got on various platforms and encouraging me to live and get better. And I knew we had a community here of like-minded people who, want to see climate solutions and hear about the technology and what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
But I didn't know they actually cared about us. They do. And very touched by that. And it is quite the community we have. So thank you to everyone who is sent out things. And just thanks for listening to the show.
Well, and is it nice to have the podcast to do, like to have something to focus on?
Well, you're carrying most of the load these days.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is nice. It's nice to have something regular. Anything that seems like a normal part of life, that's a big bonus. So we'll see.
Yeah.
But right now it's kind of difficult. I've got my old treadmill going. I had a treadmill I bought with the house 17 years ago and never quite got used. I got used for my kids. I was training them for their long distance running at school because they wanted to participate, but they weren't really athletic in that way. And we got going on that. We make little charts on the wall and they would improve and work hard. And I think they learned some lessons about fitness and working. And if you do something, it will get better. It will, if you apply yourself. And they blew my minds, actually. The results they got in the city were incredible. Like one was number 2 and one was number 7. And
Wow.
And they started out from nothing. I'm sure everybody else didn't train like we did, but we did. And they felt good about that. And they still have their ribbons. So I'm using that. And I hadn't used it because I weighed too much for it, but I've lost a significant chunk of weight since my highest peak during COVID. And I can now use the treadmill to my surprise. I'm under the weight limit. And so instead of going out on the street and carrying my disheveled carcass out there to try and walk around, to the end of the block and back to get the post-surgery exercise, I can now go on my treadmill whenever I feel the energy from food in my system. And that's working out better.
Well, that's nice. I've been out biking. We finally got some nice biking weather, and it's been really great to get out there on the bike path. And it occurred to me, we end up talking about the weather a lot on this podcast, which is a little silly because, it's always sort of local. But, I thought it's like we could have another podcast just to talk about the weather, It's like one podcast
we wouldn't have to prepare for it, really. We would just start talking.
So we could have one podcast that deals with climate and then a second podcast that just isn't it a nice warm day today? Because I know you love to talk about the difference between climate and weather. They're really two different things.
Well, I would break my heart if that one became more popular. People gathering around the speaker in the old folks' homes listening to the weather, and the farmers and everybody else. That would be sad.
Not apply to most people around the world or even apply to people around here within, 24 hours of its release. But
maybe they just think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. It makes me sad that you're enjoying your bike because I gave away my road bike, not a road bike, more of a commuter bike to my son when he moved to university, and he's still using it. He used it a couple of days ago and really had made a day out of it. I'm really happy that he's enjoying it. But it was an old bike that I bought in the 90s, and I upgraded all the components, and the shifting was high end, and it was like butter. It's just everything was perfect on it. And so I was too heavy for that because the wheels are thin, so I was using mountain bikes. But now I'm heavy enough that I can go back to that kind of bike and go around the city without electrification, and I want to do that. I found one on Marketplace, And then I look at it every day, and it's used. And it's a good price for what it is because it's an expensive bike. But I probably won't get to it this year, so why buy it? But, I would love to be doing that. I would love to have the strength to go out and start biking again in the summer. It looks like speaking of weather, there's a heat dome that's supposed to be forming over, I don't know, Ohio or somewhere in the U.S. that's sort of centered. Somewhere between there and the Rockies, they're predicting for mid-July. Did you see that? And it might affect us. And
Yes.
it could be record-breaking, they're saying. So this is a high-pressure sort of dome of heat that sort of builds up, and it could be worse than anything they've seen. It's kind of early on. We're still a ways away from that yet, but it could affect us. So I've got to get my air conditioning. My pool's not working. The hail destroyed my pool line.
Right.
So, and it's fine to go out and replace it, but it's a lot of work. Far beyond what I have capability of or will anytime soon. So I don't know what to do about that. I don't know if the insurance will pay for the labor. I don't think they will because I sort of see that as a consumable. We haven't heard back from the insurance yet from our golf ball hailstorm, which did a lot of damage. We were talking to somebody in Lumsden, which is about 30 kilometers, 20 miles out of town, a little town in the valley, and they had a hailstorm, I guess, a year or two ago, and I guess the insurance just replaced everything. They just...
Yep.
I mean, it must be so expensive.
Yep.
Like even the customers were saying, that's a lot of money. You're replacing all that. And, like roofs and solar panels coming off. They paid for the solar panels coming off and on. And the solar panels survived that one too, by the way.
Yeah.
And they're just, it's hard to pin what's happened here on climate change, but it does seem to be happening more often where we live. We know in Calgary it's happening because of climate change, because it is just pummeling them every year almost. So I'm a little bit nervous about how we move forward with that. So it's beginning of July, and July 1st is Canada's national day for its country, right? It's Canada Day.
Yeah.
It's a day celebrating the day we were formed 157 years ago, I believe. So there's fireworks. We have a tradition in this family to go to the fireworks and get out of there in record time.
Yeah.
To use my ingenuity, my George Costanza ingenuity to find a way to get out of that without staying there for 2 hours in a lineup to leave. So we did that again this year, although I was weak and probably shouldn't have been driving. And I didn't get out of the car. I let my family out, and I just stayed in the car in a parking lot by the entertainment venue in the south end of the city near the park. And
revving the engine, ready to go.
Revving my electric engine ready to go and parked in such a way. So there was a few other people doing the same thing, by the way. And it worked. We got out in record time, and the fireworks are so short here. So they're hardly worth getting out of bed for and going out there. But yeah, you must hear them where you live. Do you hear them? Because you're fairly close.
I did. I was sound asleep, and I started hearing this banging noise, and I thought it sounded like somebody banging on a door, and I was half asleep and confused, and it took me a couple of minutes to realize what it was.
To get there, we take this, what's called the ring road in our city. It's kind of like a freeway that circles the city. A lot of cities have something like that. And in our journey to get on the ring road, to get down to the opposite end of the city, we went by the refinery.
Yeah.
And the refinery, there was a north wind, and the refinery stunk.
Yeah.
And everyone said, refinery, close the vents, hit recirculate, okay?
Yeah.
So we get around to the other end of the city by where the university is. Same thing happened. Everyone said refinery at the same time.
Yeah.
And closed the vents. And that is 6 kilometers over 4 miles away. It's a small city, not the hugest city. But it spanned from the north reaches to the south reaches in a very distinctive, I want to say audible, but noseable way, like nasal way, like it really smell. And if you can smell it, it's probably harmful, right? Because you don't need to, it doesn't have to be smelled to be harmful necessarily. And I noticed you're 1 kilometer, I measured it, you're 1 kilometer further. So, but you're lucky because it would require a northeast wind to hit you, and that they're very rare. Yeah, we did have one day where it was like constant northeast winds, but the northeast winds are just temporary as the wind direction shifts. So you're in a good area, I think. But it just goes to show that place covers the city. But upgrading oil in the refinery, petroleum has really been. It's something that we talk about on the show, and it makes people like you and I more frustrated because we know it's not necessary. Yeah. We know we can adapt away from that a lot faster than we are where we are. and other places in the world are doing that. So it seems just even more pointless that we would be breathing toxins. It's bad enough that they built it within the city.
Yeah, so we need our air conditioning for the upcoming heat dome, as well as anytime the wind blows in the wrong direction, which is terrible. Although so far, no real forest fire smoke this year, but I imagine that will come later, probably. All right, speaking of pollution, we have a story from The Guardian. This is from Delhi, the capital of India. They have new laws in place. They're going to ban new gas rickshaws in 2027 and new fossil fuel scooters or motorbikes banned in 2028. They're going to do that by no longer issuing license plates for any of those new vehicles that are not electric. They're going hard. So no more gas rickshaws after 2027, no more scooters or motorbikes after 2028. It sounds like the existing ones, if you already have a license plate, you'll be able to keep using it. But their goal is to have 30% of the city's fleet electric by 2030, which is in just 4 years. As we talk about all the time, cities like Delhi have an enormous amount of 2- and 3-wheeled transportation around their cities. And these are in many ways easier to electrify than larger gas vehicles. But yeah, scooters and rickshaws account for more than 2/3 of the vehicles on the road in Delhi, which is wild. It's a city of 28 million people, approximately, if you include the whole sort of metro area. This is a massive, massive city. So getting to 30% electric by 2030 would make a huge, huge difference. We know that, especially in the winter there in Delhi, they have terrible, terrible pollution. It tends to settle on the city with thick smoke, and vehicles are accounting for about 23% of all the pollutants. So if they can cut that down, obviously that is the single biggest source of pollution in Delhi. So this is a big deal. They've also introduced new road and vehicle tax exemptions for new electric cars as well, in the hopes of incentivizing drivers to switch over by choice before they are forced to do so eventually.
Well, India's finally getting it. You know, they were a little bit slow, and we were kind of nudging them on, hoping that they would come around to things like this, policy like this. But it is a good idea. I know that pollution is multifaceted in Delhi and places like that. There's a lot of construction. There's non-paved roads which kick up dust, and then there's the agricultural burning outside that the mountains sort of trap that in there. But if you got to do what you can do, and this is one thing that you can do. You can't necessarily stop construction. Maybe you can improve the practices of construction. But this is a good idea, and it signals right now what's coming and what should be done. So maybe people start buying electric versions of these sooner than later. And I think they pollute more too than cars.
Yeah, it is happening already. There are quite a few electric rickshaws. There's been some complaints about not enough charging spots. So that's the other part of the policy, that the government has pledged to establish more than 30,000 public charging points across the city. So, having the charging infrastructure is also important to this, and they seem committed to doing it.
And it's an easy thing to do. You're not putting in 30,000 charge points for semi-trucks, for lorries, or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
They are just smaller, larger versions of e-bikes. So you should be able to put those points in pretty quickly and pretty easily without changing your electrical system in any significant way. So it can be done. The government just needs to be organized and ready to do that policy. And they can make money off of it too. I mean, you can sell the electricity that the grid is making.
Yeah.
And people will ultimately save money. And of course, all these things are happening faster because of the oil crisis, the oil shock that's still going on. And which is ultimately more and more people in op-eds are saying it's a good thing for the climate. And it really seems to have turned out that way.
No, and we'll talk about that later in Great Britain in another story.
All right. Well, this is the first show of our month that we've recorded in July, and I'd like to take the opportunity to thank the people who support us financially on Patreon. We have different levels that you can support us on, and once you get to the Clean Club level and higher, you get a shout-out monthly on the podcast. So let's get that out of the way right now so I can have something to say. And Green Bastard, Brent Routley, and Tiernan are in our Clean Club Executive, the highest paying club, and Clean Club Plus is Barb Armstrong, John Hayes, Timo Kellenberger, Wes S., and Glenn Wright. Thank you, everyone, for supporting us in such generous ways. And of course, thanks to our Clean Club members Noah Cook, Denny and Linda, Jonathan Dick, Bob Eaton, Josh Engen, Sean Ennis, Andy Fessler, Jack Frankovich, Roshan Gervais, H., Sean Hines, Just Jack, David Klenke, Peter O'Donnell, Weldon Penner, Matthew Pointer, you're new. Thank you, Matthew, for joining the Clean Club. Robu Arthur Slade, Joe Thorsheim, Landed U, and Richard W. Thank you all. And we have other supporter levels that aren't getting a shout out. Thanks to you guys, too, for kicking in $1 or $2 or $3 a month. We really appreciate it.
All right. Another story from The Guardian. The first new hydropower projects in Great Britain in 40 years are now going ahead. And these are not traditional hydro dams, which is usually what we think of when we think of hydropower. These are pumped hydro projects, and they work even more like a battery than a traditional hydro dam. Of course, you can just close off your traditional hydro dam and let the water level rise on its own, and then, use it like a battery if you don't need it. But pumped hydro, you tend to need excess electricity for this. It works best if you have, say, extra solar power during the day, and essentially you just pump the water from a low body of water to a high body of water, and then you drain it down at night or whenever you need that power. So these can be like a very long duration battery. They also have the potential to be less invasive than a traditional hydro dam. You're mostly making use of the existing nature that exists. You just need a body of water that's low, another one that's higher, and then you just need to add the pumps in between them. So it's, not necessarily the chaos that you would sometimes get with a hydro dam that has to, sort of block off and create a new reservoir. So the regulators have given a provisional green light to 3 of these pumped hydro projects as part of a plan to reduce the country's reliance on energy imports. All 3 of these pumped hydro projects are going to be built in northern Scotland, where the region's lochs will act as natural reservoirs to serve the hydropower stations. Loch Ness is going to be one of these water sources, basically the only one of these lakes that I've heard of. And they're expected to be built by the early 2030s, which is not as quick as I would have hoped, but, I guess quicker than building something like the Hoover Dam. But yeah, hopefully online in the early 2030s. And this is the first pumped hydro project since the Dinorwig hydropower plant that's in North Wales. It started operating in 1984, and it's known locally as the Electric Mountain, and can generate enough electricity to power the equivalent of almost 2 million households in Great Britain, and quickly, in a matter of seconds, by adjusting the flow of the water to drive the turbines. Now, this surprised me. I didn't know this. This form of electricity generation has been used in Britain for almost 150 years.
Wow.
It's one of the oldest forms of energy storage. So, you can do this with just regular electricity. It doesn't have to be, excess solar. That tends to be the best thing for it. And the energy minister had this to say: the lesson from the conflict in Iran is clear. Britain cannot afford to remain at the mercy of volatile fossil fuel markets and leave families exposed to the next price shock. So one by one, governments around the world are realizing that they need their own energy security that doesn't rely on what is happening in the Middle East. So there's a total of 16 provisionally approved projects to store electricity. Most of those are lithium-ion batteries, but there's also a compressed air storage battery in T's. And, instead of pumping water, you pump air with this, and you store high-pressure air in these massive containers, and then you can do the same thing. You release the air at a certain point to drive turbines and create electricity. So Great Britain is going hard on energy storage.
Yeah, and avoiding the chemical storage of batteries, which we believe will become even more predominant in the coming years.
Yeah.
Sodium ion is starting to be made into commercialized. And once that sort of takes off and the manufacturing gets cheaper and it gets proven to utilities, and, they're a bit bigger for the energy, but they last longer. So many good news stories for chemical batteries. But this is an approach to throw everything you can at the problem and get going.
Yeah, and I love battery storage, but yeah, you will have to eventually replace the batteries. And I guess in a pumped hydro situation, you're going to eventually have to replace the pumps and that kind of infrastructure as well. But I love the simplicity of it. You're just creating a battery out of water. What could be simpler?
Well, unfortunately, where we live, it's pretty flat. It's pretty flat prairies.
That is true,
where the population is. It's a bit tricky here. I've seen some people try to do studies on it for us because we have problems like that. But yeah, I don't know. There's easier places that are almost ready to go. Like there's an underpopulated or underflowed little lake at the top of a mountain or top of a small hill or something like that can be used, and it's not, you're not changing the environment that much. You're just running a pipe down to a lower level. I don't know how destructive it is. Maybe some of our listeners have some thoughts on pumped hydro being a problem. I also don't see compressed air and some of these other things taking off. They're still making them. They're still putting them up, but they're not really grabbing the reins and taking off with anything here on any one solution. It seems to be energy storage. Energy storage was bigger than, battery storage was bigger than solar last year.
Yeah.
As far as what got put out. If you'd like to contact the Clean Energy Show, and we hope you do, about anything, let us know what's on your mind. Drop us an email at cleanenergyshow@gmail.com or voicemail at speakpipe.com/cleanenergyshow. And happy summer to everyone, except for those of you in the Southern Hemisphere. If you're listening to the Southern Hemisphere, tell me about your winter. What's it like? Where you live? Is it mild? Is it temperate? Is it a little bit nasty? Give us a line I'll read it on the show. I'm kind of interested in what our listeners are going through for winter in the Southern Hemisphere.
All right. The country of Greece is now offering a bounty on an invasive fish. This story is from Bloomberg. So as we know, one of the consequences of climate change is that it changes the migration patterns of various wildlife. Once you change the weather, animals that avoided a colder part of the world then suddenly want to move in. So around here, it's is it the elm? No, there's a sort of a beetle that's now invading Canada that wasn't there before.
The elm bark beetle or something bark beetle? Yeah.
Yeah. So, we have.
I haven't heard much about it lately. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe we've had cold enough winters but for the last decade and a half, it's been wiping out swaths of forest in the Rocky Mountains in Canada.
Yeah.
So it's kind of scary because they didn't get cold enough to beat them back in the wintertime.
Yeah, I guess if we have a cold winter, it might help. But anyway, what's happening in Greece is the silver-cheeked pufferfish has migrated from the tropical waters of the Indian Ocean to the Mediterranean via the Suez Canal. This fish is armed with teeth that can bite through steel cans.
Okay, that's not good. First of all, I didn't care for the name. The name of the fish sounds unpleasant to begin with. Now you're telling me it can bite through cans.
Yes.
That's not what I wanted to hear.
Well, and there was some concerns that they were attacking people, but there's really only one reported incident of that, but it is technically possible.
Oh, they'll learn, Brian. They'll learn, they'll change and adapt and realize that we're good meat.
Yeah. Well, this is a good Steven Spielberg Jaws sequel, perhaps. But yeah, they have teeth that can bite through steel cans and a body containing a neurotoxin that is 1,000 times more potent than cyanide.
Well, it gets better and better, doesn't it? This invasive... talk about your climate change horror stories. This fitting in pretty good there.
Yes. And not surprisingly, this pufferfish has very few natural predators. I can't imagine why, but so they first started appearing in Greek waters around 2005, but the numbers have exploded in recent years. One fisherman said it's ravenous because it's eating all the other fish, of course. So their catches are down an average of 30 to 40% compared with just a couple of years ago, which is very sad. So the government has started a pilot project. They're putting up 1.5 million euros as a bounty to encourage fishermen to catch this invasive pufferfish. They're going to be paid 5 euros for every kilogram of these fish that they can land, which reminds me of a story my dad used to tell. My dad grew up.
My dad told me the same story. How's that possible? My dad was way older than your dad.
Yeah.
And he was living on a homestead farm when that was going on.
Yeah. So in the 1940s, in the prairies of Canada, in Saskatchewan, They would have a bounty on gophers. Gophers were a problem for farmers. So it was a way for kids like my dad to make extra money. You would go out and kill gophers, and you would chop off the tail and you would bring in the tails, and that's how you would prove the bounty. And I think they would give you like 25% for each, 25 cents for each gopher tail.
It was a half cent or maybe 2 cents or
2
something.
cents? That low? 5 cents maybe?
It was a decade earlier, at least a decade earlier.
Yeah. So, this is not a new thing, offering a bounty for invasive species. But, nevertheless, this is what's going on. In June, global sea surface temperatures reached 20.86 degrees. This is the highest ever for this time of year. Of course, this is a developing El Nino year, which is tending to make these kinds of things worse. These fish can bite through ordinary fishing nets. So this is not a, normal fish catching operation.
Even if you're using a can as a fishing net, it's going to bite through it. I mean, what are you going to do?
Could bite through cans. So, yeah, and it's one of those fish. It's this puffer fish that you've probably heard about before. It's obviously toxic, and they're illegal to be consumed in Europe, but this is a delicacy in Japan. This is one of the fish that you sometimes hear about.
Really?
Yes.
This crazy thing.
It's a delicacy, but you have to be a highly trained chef who knows how to gut the fish.
Remember what happened to Homer Simpson.
Exactly.
He didn't do farewell.
You end up killing the people eating the fish if you don't do it perfectly. So yes, these can be eaten in Japan as a delicacy, but banned in Europe. So who knows what they're going to do with all the fish that they catch. But yeah, that's what's going on in Greece.
Oh, sorry, Greece. I don't think anyone's listening to us from Greece, but I hope they don't spread any further.
Yes.
Like eventually, if they kill off everything, then they die off themselves or they become cannibals. I mean, what's going to happen there?
So, yeah, if there's nothing left for them to eat. But I don't know. We'll see how this goes.
Well, the scientists need to get in there and mess with their reproductive organs and have them, spread so that they're infertile or something.
Yes, we've talked about that in terms of mosquitoes, right? They were doing that in California, I think, with mosquitoes, trying to make them infertile.
And good luck to them, because there's a lot of mosquitoes out there now.
Yeah.
Only some of them are due to my pool, which is not circulating. The Clean Energy Show is an independent podcast powered by listeners like you guys. Support us on patreon.com/cleanenergypod for as little as $1 a month. Ad-free episodes, early access, all that. Discounts on merch, and we really appreciate it. Coming up next, though, is the lightning round. It's time for the lightning round.
The lightning round is a fast-paced look at the latest headlines in climate, clean energy, and transportation.
Yeah, big European heat wave in June, late June, 5,000 excess deaths in Germany so far, they've calculated.
Yeah.
So that's, and again, quiet deaths. You don't know. You don't put the cause of death as necessarily heat, but if there's 5,000 excess and it's hot, that is usually the reason. So that's a lot of people, and it's just so hard to pin down. We have to do more. We have to obviously fight against climate change, but we also have to do what we can with the climate changing. June heat wave in the UK led to a mass sleep deprivation. A poll suggests record temperatures fueled by the climate crisis left 86% of homes too hot and many people feeling unwell.
Yes, and my mother-in-law is in the UK right now visiting relatives in London or in the suburbs of London, and unfortunately, the hotel she was staying in did not have air conditioning. So,
big mistake.
I imagine that she did not sleep that well.
Your mother-in-law is no spring chicken.
Yeah,
how is she faring?
Well, I think it was okay, but yes, the problem was because it was out in the suburbs, and there was just not a lot of great hotels around there. So,
right.
But also it was something we didn't think about when we looked into booking all this.
Well, maybe you should next time, Brian.
Yes.
Maybe you should. My mother always had the temperature in her house at like 90 degrees Fahrenheit. So I wondered if she would do well in climate change. But yes, I would definitely say that. It's time for a CES Fast Fact. U.S. car payments hit a record $777 a month for a car.
Wow.
I mean, my mortgage was half that, I think, at first, until we started adding things to it. That's a quarter of all car payers or buyers taking out 7-year loans or greater, which would be me if I was doing it. And that's before parking, insurance, gasoline costs, and comparatively in China, it's $240 a month average car loan.
Yeah.
So, but everything's cheaper in China. Inflation's cheaper, rent's cheaper,
Yeah.
wages are cheaper.
Car prices have not come down much here in North America.
America is expected to harvest its lowest acreage of wheat since 1877. So that's good for us, I guess. Here in Canada, the breadbasket of Canada, where wheat is everything, maybe wheat prices will be high for our farmers. This is due to drought, scorched crops, high input costs, and uncertainty in the markets. CATL, the world's largest battery maker out of China, talked a lot about them and their innovations lately. Not NEO, but CATL is building 200 battery swap stations per month.
Yeah.
Which is, it's not a charger, it's a building.
Yeah.
With a large robot that changes batteries in cars. They're building 200 a month. A month.
That's an insane number. And instead of charging, you go in and swap the battery with your NEO car. But so it's not just NEO building these.
It's CATL building it for other things. And there's more because CATL is partnering with J&T Express, which is a trucking company in China to provide battery swap services for 5,000 heavy-duty trucks. So these heavy-duty trucks will not charge, they'll swap. Yeah. People say you can't have batteries in long-distance trucks because the driver would have to spend too much of his day charging. Well, not if it's 3.5 minutes. Go to the bathroom, do whatever you got to do. CATL will supply battery swap batteries and operational services for these 5,000 heavy-duty trucks. So that's just one announcement. These keep coming, and it's always good to see because, 5,000 less gas-using vehicles. And maybe that refinery won't need to exist one day soon when I go to the fireworks or open my window at night. ENGIE North America is assessing the damage from hurricane-force winds that tore through a South Dakota wind farm earlier this week, damaging more than 20 of the site's 92 turbines. Hurricane-force winds in South Dakota. Yeah. I know they get good winds there, and that's why there is wind turbines, because the mountains are channeling things and yada, 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 the terrain. But that's still pretty serious winds. Yeah, well, it was super windy when we went to Waterton in Alberta a month or two ago. But what do you see when you go to Waterton? You see a lot of wind turbines. They have them there too, even though that's in Alberta, oil country. Remember the Inflation Reduction Act? It was a big deal on the show. Yeah. President Joe Biden did it, and it was supposed to be Republican proof. Yeah. It was supposed to be like, okay, they can't screw with this. This is what everyone was concerned with. Because if they screw with it, then you can't invest. They wanted people to invest, and here's some money to help you invest in loans and everything else to get clean energy going. Well, the chatter, including on this show, is that it's been largely gutted, but that's not true. It's actually not dead. 67 to 74% of it is still intact. And when we speak of that, I mean the amount of emissions reductions that it was supposed to achieve, 67 to 74% of it is still intact. It was written to be Republican-proof, and it seems to have done that. There's a link there from MIT that did a study on that, and the article is called Glass Half Full, Building a Decarbonized U.S. Power Sector. This is from Splash 247, not talked about on the show before, but first time for everything. In 2022, China had only 4 electric cargo ships. By 2025, last year, that number had risen to 42. Wow. So 4 to 42 in a few years. The fleet has also diversified beyond small demonstrator vessels with electric bulk carriers, container ships, and multi-purpose cargo ships entering service that are electric. Now, not all ships have to cross oceans. They don't all have to be trans-ocean ships. There's lots of short routes going from city to city, especially in China, taking cargo and supplies from one manufacturing hub to maybe another. The maximum vessel size has climbed from around 3,000 dry weight tons in 2022 to about 14,000 in 2025. So not only have they increased the number, they've increased the size. So it's a progressing, steady technology here. And while operating range has improved from about 150 kilometers at first, now they're up to 400 to maybe as much as 500 kilometers for some vessels in service now. And look for that to expand, not indefinitely, but, it's going to keep expanding. Yeah. And finally this week from The Guardian, in Pakistan, one of the world's top 20 emitting nations, solar capacity has increased more than tenfold in 4 years, as we talked about many times. as gas power turned unreliable and grid electricity became wildly expensive. Solar electricity last year topped 25% of the country's electricity, which we've mentioned, prompting the government to cancel liquefied natural gas imports scheduled for this financial year. So they're already saying, no, we don't need your natural gas anymore. Our citizens have all put up solar panels, so no thank you, which is good for them because it's expensive and they're reliant on other places. So Pakistan's electricity demand rose 21% in 2 years. The demand rose because you can't have demand if you're not making electricity and you're blacked out half the time. So what they did is use more electricity because they put up their own solar panels. And Ember Energy says the growth came almost entirely from people and businesses putting up their own solar, not from the grid. So that's a very unique situation.
Oh, that's amazing and a great good news story to end the show on. You can find us, Clean Energy Show, on social media apps like TikTok, Instagram, as Clean Energy Pod. The email again, cleanenergyshow@gmail.com. And remember to hit the follow or subscribe buttons, and we will have new episodes for you every week.
Still to come is our Patreon bonus podcast later this month when I've been injected with some special fluids from scientists to give me the energy to do so. But remember, you can go to patreon.com/cleanenergypod. And even if you don't want to spend money, you can join our Patreon for free and get updates that are public, kind of like social media posts. So thanks again to everybody. And we will, I say this with confidence, be back in 7 days.
See you next week.